Our guest speaker today is Clay Harbin. Having achieved financial success and independence at an early point in his adult life, Clay has spent the majority of his life seeking truth. Thirsty for understanding, Clay read and traveled extensively for many years, often flying around the world to meet with authors and experts on various topics. Eventually, his search led him to the Yucatan Peninsula, where he met and studied with Mayan shaman. It was during this time with the shaman that Clay first began to realize and piece together where his spiritual path and gifts lie. His unique insight provides clear connections to all the varied expressions to man's pursuit of truth, while acting as a guide to help alleviate limiting ideas and beliefs for theosophical interpretation. Please welcome Clay Harbin.
My topic for speaking is how to improve the quality of your experience through the assimilation of truth. Now, I use the phrase assimilation because it is absolutely necessary for you to adapt your biology to understand and to comprehend and to absorb truth. We are so wrapped up in everything but truth that when we're exposed to it, regardless of our intellect, our training for remembering information, it tends to go in one ear and right out the other. So I use that phraseology very intentionally. The assimilation of truth. And how does it affect the quality of your experience? When assimilating truth, it's actually the process of becoming truth. And as you become truth, all the limitations of your expression begin to fall away. And with that, you have the opportunity, the unique opportunity, to begin to express yourself consciously, to express your free will consciously. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, it means suffering comes to an end. Now, there's been a lot of talk about 2012, okay? There's a lot of ideas associated with this date, the magical date of 2012. Now, there's also a lot of talk about the apocalypse, this thing that's coming. And then there's this idea of heaven on earth. Now, a lot of that's been kind of rolled into 2012. And there are some that actually are committed to the idea that when 2012 rolls around, paradise begins. Some believe that when 2012 rolls around, that there's going to be massive change rolling out, that suddenly we're going to start seeing more earth changes and things of this sort. All right, as far as all of that is concerned, that's happening now. And it's been going on for at least a decade. We're already seeing those massive changes. They're already occurring. There's also this idea of human consciousness suddenly making a huge leap forward. Well, that's also occurring. So what is the demarcation of 2012? Well, there's many, but the one that I would like to focus on is this. Human collective consciousness has been negative for thousands and thousands of years. As of 2012, it will be slightly more positive than negative. Now, what does this mean? Well, all the things that I discussed earlier. It means massive change. Now, a lot of us think, well, once the consciousness progresses to slightly more positive than negative, then all these great things are going to start to happen. Yes. But in order for those great things to happen, we've got to do a lot of cleaning out our closet. We're going to have to let go of a lot of our limiting ideas and beliefs. Now, this sounds easy until you involve the human ego. And then you have an issue. The human ego is all about protecting self-perception. Any threat to that self-perception, it sees as potential death, and it will fight it. It will struggle it. It will move against it with great force. Now, our consciousness is reflected all around us, including the planet. So when we go to slightly more positive in human consciousness than negative, then the changes are going to escalate because human consciousness is reflected in our planet, in our reality. There's a book that I highly recommend. It is the, let's see, what's the title? Linda?
John Blank. What's it about?
Consciousness Coming First. Bruce Lipton. Biology of Belief. Bruce Lipton. I highly recommend it. As a starting point, the thing that everybody needs to begin to do is this, and that is meditate on the idea that thought comes first. Okay? Now, if you meditate on that, there's a lot you can do with that once you begin to absorb what that means. That means that all the changes that are happening in the galaxy, that more and more people are beginning to notice that within our own solar system there's changes going on. That's happening as a reflection of what's going on with humanity. Because there is no out there. It's all within. Now, the apocalypse. The apocalypse I'd like for you to start thinking of from this point forward as simply the cataclysm of the ego. As humanity steps more into the positive frames of thought, the energy of the overall planet rises. And with that, any energy that is outside of your true natural self gets expanded upon, gets exaggerated. It becomes more obvious to you. Your limiting beliefs will begin to glare back at you very brightly. Now, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to see it, that which once was hidden deeply within your psyche. See it, recognize it, and choose to let go of it. How will this manifest in our reality? It will simply manifest through the ego's resistance to change. War, escalation. Earth change, escalation. Weather anomalies, going off the charts. Human propensity to go to higher levels of mental illness, going to go off the charts. Dysfunction within human relationships, off the charts. All of these things are coming not as punishment, but as an opportunity for you to recognize it and let it go. And in doing so, you step more into who you actually are. And that is a pure expression of love. The more you step into that, the more you begin to experience a life that is rewarding, fulfilling, and exciting. Your true state of being being is ecstatic creation. Not getting up and wondering what difficulty you're going to have today, or whether you're going to be able to make it through the day without something difficult happening. One of the phrases that we're so attached to is Murphy's Law. If it can go wrong, it will. Okay, well, that's not a law at all. That's a limiting belief that we've all bought into collectively. And so we live that law day to day to day. Well, as we begin to let go of these limiting ideas and beliefs about ourselves, that will continue to get expressed out in our reality. So it's time to get excited. It's time to get real excited. It's time to move towards excitement, not away from it. It's time for self-reflection, to look deep within yourself, to examine yourself, and to let go your limiting ideas and beliefs, because you are going to become vividly aware that your reality is a direct result of your thought. Now, your anatomy is this beautiful piece of mechanical workmanship that you created for the opportunity of experiencing the idea of separation. And because of this, it is a challenge. It's a tremendous challenge to experience that, because in the rest of the cosmos, those that have not had direct contact with us actually find it impossible to believe that an expression of God could possibly not be aware that that is what they are. They think that's quite impossible. But we chose to do that. We chose to have that experience of separation. And we created a complex science in order to support it. But more importantly, this body is a result of the thought that is committed to the experience of separation. And it is set up and designed to support that experience. The reason why your brain is in two pieces is to support the polarity of your perception of reality. Your subconscious mind is an absolute necessity to experience this degree of limitation. Your subconscious mind is where you hide the majority of your creative power. And you stick it in the dark where you don't see it, where you don't look at it, so that you stay blind to its existence. And you don't even realize that every experience that you have is there to support beliefs and emotional states that you choose to exist in. Now, free will. This is a planet of the expression of free will. Most don't know what that means. Most think that all beings throughout the galaxy experience free will. But it's much more expansive than what you imagine it to mean. It means that we can experience a diversity of energetic expression. Think of your thoughts and ideas as a flow of energy that pushes your energy up and down a scale. Most civilizations expressed throughout the cosmos are fixed within a particular frequency. Now, this isn't bad. It just is what it is. It's where we're headed. In fact, what's coming within the next few decades is we will begin to exist in a frequency of energy that is only supported by other beings in the same frequency of energy. This will be reflected back to us as a massive shift in population. we will think, where'd they go? What's happened to them? Most likely it will manifest itself in some kind of plague or something along these lines. But what it's doing is it's supporting the idea that we're letting go of the diversity of frequency. Now, this isn't a bad thing. We're stepping into a higher frequency. Now, the Bible talks about the second coming. The second coming is quite simply the awakening of human consciousness into the frequency of the Christ consciousness. Now, are all of us going to go there at the same time? No. All of us are going, but not at the same time. And as this progresses, there will be isolations of frequency. And there will begin this separation. Now, in order to truly understand this, you've got to understand that our reality is supported by timelines. Every imaginable variation of your reality is supported by a timeline. You're shifting from timeline to timeline continuously. Every time you have a thought that produces an emotional state different from that you're presently experiencing, you will go into a timeline that will support it. You want to time travel? Go from being happy to angry. And you've time traveled. Do you want to have a dramatic experience so that you can actually be aware that that's occurring? Then respond to a stimuli that would normally make you angry as making you happy. Then it will begin to become more visible to you. You'll begin to see alterations in your reality. You'll begin to get evidence, feedback back to you that allows for you to become aware of the fact that you are not in a continuous reality, that you are shifting from reality to reality to reality, from moment to moment to moment. And the more dramatically you step outside of your ego's most prized possession, your self-perception, the more dramatic your shift through time. Now, I would like to repeat that for you. The more you step outside of your self-perception, the more dramatically you will shift through time. And you will become aware of it if you're paying attention. You will see changes, subtle changes, that your brain would have before filtered out because it didn't support self-perception. I'll give you some examples. Let's say you're a philosopher. You're all about reading. That's who you are. That's who you identify yourself to be. You see the idea of video games as completely and totally insulting to your intelligence. You wouldn't anymore have anything to do with a video game than a man in the moon. But you have a friend that's addicted, in your opinion, to these video games. In fact, you have a very low opinion of them because of their addiction to video games. Well, one day on your way here to hear a lecture, you spend the day having lunch with your friend. And he, of course, wants to sell you on the idea of video games. Well, you've heard my lecture, and so you see this as an opportunity. So you say, I think I'm going to give a video game a try. Now, your ego doesn't like it. It doesn't want any part of it. But you go ahead and force the issue. So you go by a video game place. You walk in, you feel horrible. You feel uncomfortable. You don't want any part of this. What am I doing here? And you take the time to actually look at some games and think, well, what game would I like to play if I was going to play a video game? You select one and you purchase it. What have you just done? You've just obliterated your self-perception. You take it home with the intention of actually loading it onto your computer and experiencing a video game. All right, well, your friend leaves you, you throw the thing in the trunk, and you come to this meeting. And you walk in the door, and suddenly you realize the chairs are a different shade of beige. Well, that's kind of odd. I could have sworn that was a different shade. And you look over at the bookshelf, and the real ornate ones are reversed. They're on the other side. And you think, am I seeing that? And you actually mention to one of the other members of the society, you say, did you guys rearrange things and get some new chairs? Oh no, these are the same chairs we've always had. Now, if you weren't aware of the experiment that you had just practiced, you'd have walked in the room and immediately edited all that out and reaffirmed to yourself that it was just a mistake of your memory, and you'd have slipped in without ever knowing it. But with what I'm sharing with you today, you can begin to explore who and what you really are, and just how much you affect the reality around you and your experience. And as you begin to digest these experiences, you will discover the power of the statement that first comes thought. Not circumstance, thought. You know how humanity lives? Humanity determines how they feel by the circumstance they're experiencing. Now, once you comprehend that thought comes first, what does that do to that whole idea? It blows it away. Circumstance is irrelevant. It should have no effect whatsoever on your emotional state. Because once you realize thought comes first, you realize that you literally created that circumstance in order to support an emotional state that you like to play with. Think about this. You're driving down the highway and somebody on a cell phone cuts you off. And you respond by getting angry and pointing out to the friend of yours that's in the car with you how ridiculous and rude and self-centered it is to drive down the road without any concern for other drivers. Now, what I've just shared with you is this, and it's quite simple. That person in that car cutting you off is working for you. That's what synchronicity is. If you've all, I'm sure, heard the term synchronicity. Synchronicity is simply two energies coming together synchronistically in order to support both expressions of energy. The reason why you encountered this rude person on the road was because of the way you responded to the rude person on the road. In the pursuits of truth, one of the first major downloads that I experienced was no time. Time doesn't exist. Time is simply here to support our experience, our illusion. What I'm going to tell you now, I want you to think about. That is, you create your reality by how you react to your reality. What is your emotional state when somebody cuts you off on the highway? You're angry. You're upset. The true expression of prayer is to take on the emotional state of your preference, not to sit and beg to the higher power to come and save you from yourself. Prayer is simply going to the emotional state of your preference. That's how you communicate to your higher mind. So what if you just communicated to your higher mind when somebody rudely cuts you off in traffic and you react by getting angry? You've just told the all that is, God, the source, however you want to look at it, as I want to be cut off in traffic. You've just unconsciously exercised your free will. And in doing so, you've created an experience that if asked, you would say, I would never choose that. I don't want to be cut off in traffic. Being cut off in traffic upsets me. But you've blinded yourself for the purpose of this experience to how you actually create your reality. And that is through your emotional state. And you do not create linearly. Because from the part of yourself that you create from, there is no time. So you create an experience to support your emotional state. Now, when I was talking about earlier with how you shift timelines, you want to begin to become aware of sliding from timeline to timeline? Simple. The next time something happens that you would normally be justified in being upset, do just the opposite. Celebrate it. Become excited because it gives you an opportunity to express love with a challenge. And in doing so, you will shift timelines dramatically for the better, or what you would perceive to be better because of what you say you would prefer. How many of you here would prefer a reality without lawyers? Okay? How many here would prefer a reality without illness or sickness? Okay? How many of us would prefer a reality without having to go and work for somebody to pay our bills? Okay, so I can assume that the reality that you would prefer would not involve going to a restaurant and a waiter being so incompetent that they bring you the wrong meal. And not only is it the wrong meal, but it's poorly cooked. And then they're rude to you about it and act as if what you feel and think is irrelevant. Now, I would think that that would not be part of the reality that I just painted. But yet, all of us have chosen that at some point in our lives. But we chose it from our unconscious mind. We chose it by exercising our free will asleep while we're waking up. Now, the best thing you can do for yourself today and from now on is to realize this. Because humanity is waking up, the faster you begin to master conscious free will, the more immediate you're going to experience that heaven on earth. Difficulty is not guaranteed for everybody. It's only there for those that continue to choose to create unconsciously, to be a victim, to see themselves as a culmination of their experiences, and to go through life bouncing from one stimulus to the next, not unlike a ball within a pinball machine. Those are the ones that are going to have difficulty. Those of you that have sat here and heard what I'm sharing, you're making a different choice. Because what you're hearing is not an accident. Remember what I talked about with synchronicity. The reason we're been brought together is because you have created the vacuum. I'm here to fill that vacuum. So I'm working for you. You brought this about. In fact, one way you can look at this is I'm you talking to you. I'm giving you the inside information. Now, what are you going to choose with that, to do with that inside information? To doubt it? Disbelieve it? Look further? Open your mind to the possibility? Experiment? Or begin to exercise it with total faith? Moving with great determination into a state of ecstatic creation. That is the opportunity before you. Now, the essay that I've given to all of you is simply an essay I wrote on love. Humanity doesn't understand love. It thinks of it as all these different things. We've got how we love our mother. We've got how we love our sister. We got how we love our brother. And we love our child. And we love them all differently. We love strangers differently. And of course, when sex is involved, it's a completely different kind of love. Well, it's not true. The energy of love is consistent. It is what truth is. To begin to explore truth, you need to understand its parameters. Truth is, was, and always shall be the same. What about the expression of your reality that you perceive to be your reality meets those criteria? It is, was, and always shall be the same. If it meets only two of those and not all three, it's not love. You're witnessing the glamour of the ego. Think about it. Meditate on it. What about this reality is an expression of is, was, and always shall be the same? Is part of everything, all the time, everywhere. What meets that criteria? That is love. You are all an expression of love. Love is what you are. And as you become more in touch with it, you will begin to step into that state of ecstatic creation. That wondrous, beautiful state of waking up one morning with the common cold and going, I choose not to have the common cold today, and it disappears. Slipping and falling and having an injury that could potentially break your leg, and you say to yourself, not today. Seeing someone that you would like to have a loving relationship with, anyone you choose. Seeing them, choosing it, and then having it. Imagine that. Imagine the experience of anything that you can imagine being yours simply by choosing it. The reason you don't already experience that is because you're so enamored with your own pain. Now, I use the term enamored because it's not something you like. It's not something you're fascinated with. It's something you can't let go of. For instance, when somebody injures themselves, how much energy do they put into sharing that discomfort? A lot. When the person gets cut off on the road, how many times do they share that experience? You're literally worshiping your pain. Look, I got bit by a spider. I have this horrible wound on my leg. Let me show this to you. Yesterday, I fell off the roof while cleaning gutters. My back is in a bad way. It's going to take me some time to get over this. Well, why don't you have a seat over here? I don't think that chair is going to be good for my back. Are you beginning to see the reality that you're painting from moment to moment to moment because you're enamored with your pain? Now, you think that simply becoming aware of this, that you're going to start making all the right decisions. Remember when I first started my talk about the assimilation of truth? Your anatomy, your body is literally adapted to playing with your suffering. When you begin to let go of it, it's going to be like letting go of heroin. Your body is literally adapted to crave it. When you begin the challenge of making other choices, you are going to begin to understand how powerful you are, because you've literally created a mechanism, this physical body, that has supported you 100% in your pursuits. Even though you were unconscious in your pursuits, your body has supported you 100%. So as you begin to make these choices, you're going to experience the challenge of it. You say, well, if it's so easy to have a good life just simply by making these choices, by letting go of my limiting ideas and investing myself in ideas and beliefs that support my preferred reality, then this is going to be too easy. This is going to be too, I'm getting started right now. Your body has to adapt. In fact, this very talk, you will find, will slip away from you moments after walking out the door. You'll remember how you felt. You'll remember the emotional state, the ecstatic energy of realizing, beginning to tickle who you are. And you'll walk out and you'll remember how good that felt. And then somebody will say, well, what did he say? Well, what did he say? He said something about and you'll fall back on that you've already assimilated. Ideas that you've already assimilated. And that's how you will actually communicate what was shared to you today. And some of you might find this frustrating. Others may find it difficult because you see yourself as being much more intelligent than that and you don't understand why you can't hold on to this. When you read my essay on love, the first time, for most of you, not all of you, but for most of you, the first time you read it, you're going to be reading gibberish for the most part. You're going to think to yourself, well, I'm a reasonably intelligent person. I see that this is well written, but for the most part, I don't get it. I don't understand it. It doesn't seem to make any sense to me. The more you read it, the more determined you become to become it, the more it will make sense to you. Therein lies the key. Where is your focus? Is your focus on expanding and becoming more, or continuing to live out your addiction of your own suffering? That's what it comes down to. The painting in the top of the 16th chapel where Adam is reaching out and God's finger is reaching to him. That's how easy it is. You focus on it. You say, that is my primary reason for being, and suddenly the doors start opening and the anatomy begins to change. The wiring in your brain literally changes with each new thought you play with. And the more you play with this, the more your anatomy will adapt to it. You will eventually get addicted to the state of being ecstatic. And going the other direction will be very difficult for you. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, you won't even notice. Your friend will be flipping out in the seat next to you, but you could care less. The reason why you had the experience was because your friend needed that experience in order to support their reaction to it. You'll go through life, and when you see things, you'll realize that your preconceived ideas about those things are irrelevant, and you'll let them go. And your anatomy, each time you do this, will begin to adapt to it. And the more it adapts to it, the easier it becomes. The easier it becomes, the more it is who you are. And the more you become a pure expression of truth itself. And the more that will be reflected back to you. If you're looking in the mirror and the thing looking back at you is frowning, do you reach up to the mirror and try to make it smile? Or do you work on what's inside first and then see the reflection change? That's how it works. That's how simple it is. Just start smiling on the inside, regardless of the circumstance. Just start letting go of your enamorment with the idea of being wronged or hurting or scared. Just start letting go of that. And as you do, your reflection will look back at you with a beautiful smile, reminding you of just how beautiful you are and just what a magnificent expression of love you can be. Well, I think that's where I'll call it. Teach a lecture series that, see if I can find a copy of it here. These are some of the topics. As it was said in my promo, do you have that up there, the promo? I'm going to refer to it. Oh, here it is right here. Thank you. Okay. My unique insight provides clear connections to all the varied expressions to man's pursuit of truth, while acting as a guide to help alleviate limiting ideas and beliefs for theosophical interpretation. Now, this set of lectures, I start with the understanding of the Orion connection, which is really all about the science that we created in order to experience limitation. Number two is I talk about ETs and UFOs to give you some insight and to relieve a great deal of the curiosity associated with the idea of ET and UFOs. Then we go to the discovery of the ego. Now, each of these lectures is approximately 2 hours. And then from that, we go info from within, learning to focus on internal authority rather than external authority. Love. I actually, in that particular lecture, bring you the opportunity, through the use of alchemy, to experience the sensation of intense love in its purity. Reading the energy of everything. This lecture is all about understanding the messages that are continuously being given to you by everything you experience, including the chair you're sitting in or the road sign you pass. All of it are messages to you from your higher mind. Talking to animals. Now, there's all kinds of to-do about animal whisperers, the ability to communicate with animals. Well, of course we can communicate to them because they are a direct reflection of our state of mind. One of the things that's coming to Earth, and think about the change that will be required for this, we're moving into a state of fourth density expression rather than third density expression. Now, it's not the same as 3-dimension and 4th dimension. It's density. We're moving into 4th density expression. And with that, there will no longer be predatory animals on the planet because that animals are an expression of our consciousness. Think about how we operate in business. Think about how we operate country to country and how that is not unlike predators and prey. So talking to animals, of course we can talk to animals. And I use experiences of my own and I share with you the ability to do that. Seeing dead people. Oh, there's been a big to-do about that. You know, there's some gifted children that have the opportunity. All of you can do it. In fact, there is no such thing as death. The part of you that somebody that speaks to the dead will communicate with is already there. Okay? So, if you learn how to develop an intimate relationship with your higher mind through a construct that I offer, you can begin to communicate anywhere, anytime. I'll say that again. Anywhere, anytime. You can go back in the past, you can go to the future, you can go to other parts of the galaxy, and you can communicate to the past loved ones, and you can communicate to friends that you've lost touch with. You can do all of those things. Healing. What is the true purpose of healing? I'll let you guys think about that. Understanding manifestation. Once you begin to master ecstatic creation, manifestation becomes conscious rather than unconscious. We've talked a little bit about that. Free will. I actually spend 2 hours going over in detail what free will is and how it works. Understanding your physiology. I touched a little bit on that tonight. The brain, some of the deeper aspects of the brain and how you can utilize your understanding of your own brain to shift yourself into different states of consciousness. Understanding the symbolism of life, the language of spirit. 17, the afterlife. Does it exist? 18, peace. And 19, reincarnation. Now, this is a lecture that I repeat over and over, a lecture series I repeat over and over for the opportunity to share it. Why am I doing this? I'm doing it for the opportunity to become it. Because the more it flows through me, the more I step into the state of ecstatic creation. That is the point of sharing it, not to fix somebody that's messing up, because you're not. You're not messing up. There's nothing to repair. You're working perfectly. I'm sharing with you so that I have the opportunity to allow this energy to work through me like electricity works through a generator. Now, I'm offering a lecture October 23rd on a subject matter that is very, very embedded in our very lives and existence and supports our limitation in so many ways. And that is sex. There is a spiritual connection of sex and money that we are totally oblivious to. This lecture will be on October 23rd. It's 4 hours. And I go into great detail about the dysfunction of human sexuality and how that's related to our dysfunction with abundance and money, and how you can actually turn that around. Some of the benefits of this lecture will be you'll walk out of there knowing how you can have the love of your life simply by choosing it. You'll know how to utilize the single most powerful thing that exists, and that's love. This is a fact. Love, pure love, cannot, I repeat, cannot be resisted. I don't care if somebody's angry, mad, full of rage because of whatever experience they were raised with. They've got a gun pointed at your head. They have every intention of killing you. Love cannot be resisted. Now imagine if our governing bodies exercised that understanding. Imagine one nation loving another. How long would conflict continue? That lecture's on October 23rd. Okay, now, any questions that I can answer, I'll be thrilled to do so.
Where do you have the lectures?
Presently, I'm having a set at Sam's, and Linda can help you with directions and everything about how to get there. I will be starting up a new set at the Inner Space after the Love Lecture on October 23rd. It will, at this point in time, we're going for the Inner Space. Depending on how much of a turnout we have, will determine where we end up having it. Now, it's $75, but you can save $25 if you sign up for it before what date is it, the 15th? 15th of this month. So you've got 3 days to save yourself $25. Okay? If we have a large enough crowd, we'll go somewhere where there's more space. It's all dependent. But at this point in time, it'll be at the Inner Space.
Is that your website up there?
Yes.
Would you mind saying that website?
Yes, that's www.infoforlife.org.
Do you have an address for Sam?
Linda does. Do you have an address for Sam? Or at least a phone number?
945 Sharon Circle, Smyrna.
945 Sharon Circle, Smyrna. Okay?
Sam Matthews.
Sam Matthews. Any other questions? That is a wonderful, wonderful way of putting it. And one thing I would like to add to that is this. Before the person developed the hoarding tendency early in life, if they had been told that there's an aspect of their personality that will lead to them hoarding, and they would say, what do you mean? And you say, well, there'll be actually a day when you won't be able to walk in your house because you'll have so much stuff you literally will not be able to move outside of the kitchen. Oh, I would never do that. Okay? That is the mechanism of limitation at work. And I will tell you each and every one this. It's active in all of you. The ugliness of your self-perception, you are blind to. You don't see it. You don't know it's there. Well, guess what? It's going to come to the surface, and all of you are going to begin to see it. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Well, I'd like to point out one thing about the Photon Belt and those well, all of that is simply an expression or a reflection of what's going on with humanity. There are massive changes going on within our galaxy, but it's all a reflection of what's going on within us. Sam's, the other night, when I brought love into the room in a very intense fashion, I broke into a hard sweat. So correlate that with everything warming up.
as love floods into our reality, it becomes more energetic and creates more energy. Yes, ma'am. Okay, what I was speaking of is how the person, before they actually begin to express the hoarding tendency. Let me do my best in that 1 minute. We all have a closet full of limiting beliefs and ideas that support our suffering that we're unaware of. Just like the hoarder is unaware of their illness until it's brought to their attention. As we become aware of it, we will then develop the desire to go in and clean up, to empty our closet. And in order to become a manifester, a conscious manifester, you got to empty your closet. You got to get rid of the stuff. All done. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been my pleasure.